The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And this morning we're going to start on a somber note. It's Friday, and a Fall River native and two other of our special operations forces, and specifically two special forces. There is a difference. Special forces means Army Green Berets, and an Air Force Staff Sergeant who was also Special Operations were killed in Afghanistan by an IED. I believe we have a picture of Staff Sergeant First Class Emond somewhere. Yeah. And highly decorated. I believe this was his 7th tour. I had more information, but forgive me, I can't read it. It's on my phone, and I just had an eye exam, and I got my eyes dilated. So I have to read from the big print. They were stationed, both of them were with the 3rd Special Forces Group that is home based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. They were serving in Afghanistan, but they were assigned to the 3rd Special Forces Group, Airborne, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Army Staff Sergeant Dylan Eklund, 25 of Pennsylvania, was assigned, I believe, to an air base in the Southwest. Wish I had more. I apologize for not having. I had the specific information, but I can't. I can't get it on my phone because I can't read it. Sergeant First Class Emond did attend Durfee High School. I believe he lives in Washington State now, and he served seven deployments. And it's something that we should all take note of. It hits home a little closer to people here because he's from Fall River, and it wasn't that long ago we were dedicating an auditorium to another fallen soldier from Fall River. It's a reminder to all of us, especially those who become personal and think that politics is the entire world. They better remember that the only reason that you have the ability to act the way you do is because men like this and women are putting their lives on the line every single day.
That's true. They
wear the uniform, and they're in places that nobody remembers. And once in a while, we've been in Afghanistan. We're pushing 20 years. Why? I don't know. Genghis Khan didn't want to go in there. The Russians spent 10 years in there and realized that they couldn't take control because of the terrain. And it's a sad note. We've lost, and we're losing them every day out there. We're losing them in every other part of the world. It wasn't that long ago, a Special Forces operator was killed in Africa. And they are all over the world, men and women in uniform, and they are protecting our lives and protecting our way of life. And
one of the things that Sergeant Emond did was he created a program here in Massachusetts called the Massachusetts Fallen Heroes Program. Confirms news. That organization founder Sergeant First Class Eric Emond was killed yesterday while fighting in Afghanistan. He formed this, and they support Gold Star families. And they close with, sadly, our mission has become all too real. Eric and the Emond family have become a part of our Gold Star family community. We will honor him as we have the other brave men and women on our memorial. We will care for his family as he did for all Gold Star families.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about Veterans Day, and we remember Sgt Emond made the ultimate sacrifice, as did the other two, the captain.
He left 3 children behind, his wife and 3 children. He has received the Bronze Star several times, 3 Purple Hearts. As a matter of fact, his most recent Purple Heart prior to this one was he had been hit by an IED.
Yeah, he had shrapnel from an IED.
And he had spinal and head injuries and brain trauma, and he was treated here in Boston.
Yeah.
And you know, this man kept going back, 7 tours of duty. That's the consistency of this man's character.
Well, Captain Andrew P. Ross, 29, and of course Sergeant Emond and Staff Sergeant Dylan Eklund. All of those people gave the ultimate sacrifice. But as we said at Veterans Day, just remember, every individual ever put a uniform on in the military, regardless of where they were, where they went, they wrote a check to this country that was cashable all the way up to their life. And these men, unfortunately, gave their lives for their nation. And I'm sure they obviously, because of their record, and especially Sergeant Emond's record, it's pretty obvious that they didn't give a second thought to the commitment they made to their country. 7 deployments, and
I know this touches you greatly, Chip. You know.
Yeah, there's just no words.
Yeah, there are. There are no words. And you know.
So remember that when you start whining about you're picking on my mayor.
Yeah.
Just remember the sacrifices that everybody makes to allow you to do this. There are far more important things than the things we face. We are people in this country, and when they come back, they're not given the care they need at the VA. We just saw a VA story about the VA not paying people for their the full amount for their educational benefits. And we honor veterans on days and when we have a death. But then we got to remember, hold your congressman's feet to the fire. These people deserve every single dime that they get, and every single commitment. This nation, they gave 100% commitment to this nation. This nation should have 100% commitment to them.
I agree. I agree. I mean, when you hear stories about poor care in places like the Brockton VA, which recently came out, you wonder. And then we can spend billions of dollars on aid to other countries, and we can't spend $1 million or $2 million to get some homeless veterans off the street or to feed some homeless veterans. I have a problem with that. I have a very serious problem with that. And, it seems to me that our priorities in this country are just not in line with where they should be.
You're right, and I think every one of us today should take some time to reflect and give a moment of silent honor to these men who gave their lives, and everybody who has, and everybody who's given a commitment to their nation. But above all, it hits even closer to home. Being from Fall River and being Special Forces, it hits me even closer, because I was stationed right across the street in the 6th Special Forces when I was at Fort Bragg from the 3rd Special Forces. So I knew a lot of men from the 3rd Special Forces when I was at Bragg. So, this is just and unfortunately, it happens all the time. It's sad commentary of war. But the reality is, why do we fight these things? Why are these people there? They're there to protect us. when we complain about the Constitution and complain about the law not being followed, these men and women are out there fighting for an ideal. They're fighting for what this country was based on, to give us the freedom and the ability to have a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people. And their sacrifice can just, you know, there can never be enough said about their sacrifice, and there can never be enough done for these people and their families. So,
Well, on to the news.
on to the news.
Well, looks like the city's going to have, you know, this mayor really must love lawsuits. It looks like we have another lawsuit coming up.
Yeah.
His attorneys, Partridge, Snow, and Hahn, are calling this a political ambush. And while no action has yet been filed in court, their lawyers are in their due diligence phase. The preservation letter was sent to the RDA on Tuesday, portrays the November 16 meeting as a significantly unusual and suspect since it was held on a Friday night, and during a week the members knew that Fiola was out of town. Additionally, repeated requests by RDA member Joseph Oliveira were made to delay the meeting so Fiola could be available to answer questions on a number of issues, including alleged city pier cost overruns, including the installation of $400,000 worth of film ordered without a change order. The New Bedford-based attorney is also defending Bristol County Economic Development Consultants in a lawsuit brought by the mayor, Jason Correa II, accusing the nonprofit of owing the city back rent. So this mayor just loves lawsuits, loves them.
Well, because he doesn't have to pay for them. He only has to pay for his legal defense, and he's got a GoFundMe account for that. So, but you know, there is going to be, I believe, there's a motion to get all the texts and emails that were pursuant to this. So this should be interesting. I guess there's going to be a lot of attempted erasures very closely. Isn't it amazing that, you know, they're saying this wasn't orchestrated, but I can tell you what, they're not going to be real happy, you know, when they get all these texts. I think we're going to find out that it was obviously, you know, anybody that has a modicum of intelligence can tell it was a you know, an orchestrated, prearranged.
An ambush.
An ambush. Yeah, that's a good, you know, a political ambush. Yep, and it's just. You know, I mean, as you said, this city just, you know, we just don't care. We just don't. You know, the hell, you know, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Another lawsuit, who cares? Yeah, you know, those people are just trying to, you know, they're trying to steal my job. Well, the people are the people who you work for, as we said on the last show. And this is just, you know, it's insane. And anybody who thinks that this isn't a hindrance to this city doing business has to be out of their mind. I mean, it's a never-ending saga, and it's on more than just one front. I mean, now we've got RDA involved because there are all kinds of political machinations, and you know, but life goes on long after the thrill of living is gone, especially in Fall River, and you know, it's almost, you run out of commentary on these things, because every time you open the newspaper, it's another lawsuit, it's another, you know, there's another issue, there's another allegation, there's another this, there's another that, and our city council has something else to wring their hands over and not do anything about. But
it's interesting because we're getting a lot of messages about what's going on, and we just received one because, as you know, the Fall River Redevelopment Authority had a special meeting to deal with all those open meeting law complaints.
Yeah.
Well, one of the members of the Redevelopment Authority, Bob Smith, said the open meeting law doesn't seem like the fine is not that big. It's not big. It's a $1,000 fine. They don't care. Why?
It's not their money.
It's not their money.
It's your money.
That's right. The city's going to pay it.
It's not that big. I'm the harbor master. I'll get a pay raise for this.
That's right. Exactly.
I'll get a pay raise. Don't worry about it. I got a politically appointed job. Don't worry about it. Whatever the mayor wants, he'll get, and no big deal. Who cares? Who cares if we violate the law?
The law doesn't matter.
But you try that. The next time you get arrested and they give you a fine, say,
who cares?
It's not that big.
It's not a big deal, right?
Because because, I'm just going to call up 6th floor. They'll pay the fine. Don't worry about it.
It's terrible.
It is. Well, it's horrible.
Well, what's very interesting, though, is, as I said, the Fall River Redevelopment Authority did have to meet to discuss all of those open meeting law complaints. That's a lot of open meeting law complaints.
Yeah.
The Division of Open Government is going to be very busy with Fall River once again.
Yeah,
What was interesting was they voted 4-1 to go into executive session to deal with these open meeting law complaints, which seems to be ridiculous, but that's neither here nor there, because you hear the city council constantly gets them and they say, received, placed on file, refer over to the corporate council. That's it. That's all they really have to do. They don't have to do anything. But they had to go into executive session to discuss this. No problem.
Because they're in executive session, they can't collude.
No.
They can't collude.
Yeah, nobody can deal with
There's no collusion. You can't prove collusion if they're behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Why do they have to go into executive session? You know what executive session is for. I know what executive session is for. That's not what executive said, to discuss a complaint.
Right.
It doesn't deal with medical informational.
Well, they stood on the position that it's going to affect their legal strategy to answer these complaints. Therefore, they could go into executive session. But again, the vote was 4-1 because RDA member Bob Smith also questioned why the authority wouldn't discuss the issue publicly. So Bob Smith is, he's out there and he's acting in favor of the city at times, but he's also acting in favor of the people. Because again, what do you have to hide? What do you have to hide?
Well, the thing is that their strategy. What strategy is there? The complaint has been filed. We're not. It is what it is. There's no further evidence to be forthcoming. The fact is that the open meeting law violation has nothing to do with whether this meeting was orchestrated or not. That's another issue. The open meeting complaint is based on the open meeting law and whether they violated it by how they discussed it, what they discussed, when it was posted. There's a whole litany of things, and if you want to read the open meeting law, it's available. You can get it. But,
Bob Smith also said, now this is his quote, "It just seems like a minor issue, and the penalties are so minor that if we made a mistake, we acknowledge it and we own it. I don't think we did, but I don't see why we need to go into executive session."
Isn't it nice, the cavalier attitude, the fines are minor? Don't worry about it. The purple bag fine's minor. What are you people complaining about because you're going to get fined? Well, because we have to pay them. It's nice to know that you don't care how much it costs because you're not paying. You can bet your bippy that Mr. Smith would be concerned about the fine if he was taking it out of his wallet.
Well, and that's the thing, that because they're not taking it out of their pockets.
It's, and they talk about Freudian slips. That this is fundamentally a pseudo-Freudian slip because it shows their attitude. They don't give a rat's butt about anything because there are no consequences to them. There are no consequences to them. They get these appointed positions, and they do the mayor's bidding. And when the crap hits the fan, so what? Minor, no biggie. No biggie. How many more open meeting complaints does Fall River have? It's like they're going to have to dedicate an entire wing up there just to deal with Fall River. We've probably got more cumulative open meeting complaints than the rest of the state combined. I mean, I know you're laughing, CJ, but it's true. I mean, for God's sakes, let's go. I mean, what's going on here? I mean,
what did a federal judge once say about Fall River?
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of seeing Fall River before this court.
Yep.
And it's going to be the same thing with the open meeting. And, the reality is this is, and the thing that really disturbs me today, especially today, when we see people fighting for the laws and the constitutions, that government appointees and government agencies, they're so cavalier about ignoring the law. Oh, don't worry about it. It's only a minor fine. So we did it wrong. Again, I mean, you think maybe they're required now to give seminars on sexual harassment in the workplace. You think the city of Fall River, and they have, and I know they've had open meeting laws seminars.
Yes, we had one 2 years ago.
And who went? Virtually nobody.
Wasn't a lot of people that went, but the funny thing was members of the city council did go.
Do you think?
But many board members didn't go.
Do you think that the city council should pass a resolution and maybe even an ordinance that any board that gets found guilty of an open meeting law violation more than once is required to attend an open meeting law seminar? And if they do it again, there's some kind of consequence for their actions? Because, you know, we just keep getting open meeting law violations and nobody gives a damn because there's nothing. There's no consequences. And I know you're getting a text.
Oh, I'm getting tons of them. They're not stopping, and that's the funny part about it.
You know, and it's like they don't care. And, you know, hey, you know, maybe if you're not part of a government, you don't care about laws. But when you're part of a government, you're on a you're supposed to be bound by law. And you have this attitude like, who cares?
Well, people, it hasn't started just when it stopped with an open meeting law complaint.
Oh, yeah.
People are actually sending letters to the governor asking why he appointed Michelle Dion to the RDA. She has no qualifications.
Yeah.
She was appointed, for our viewers, she was appointed because Michael Rodrigues and Alan Sylvia put her name in. They wanted her appointed because Jazel wanted her.
And where are those two?
Oh, they're in Cape Verde right now.
Cape Verde. I mean, our state reps spend more time in Portugal, Cape Verde, on the public dime, and they get all their little stipends and stuff. Mike Rodrigues is what, #3 in the state for stipends the last time they released it? #2 or #3 in the state. I still got the article somewhere. You know, what a great gig that is. And those are our lawmakers. But who cares about laws? Didn't Mike Rodrigues go in and strong arm a legal agency of the state?
For a road over a pathway.
For a road?
Yeah, he did.
Now, the hell with the law. Oh, also, didn't he, like...
And basically that says the hell with the people.
Also, didn't he pass a law about putting a tax on alcohol, then go to New Hampshire and buy tax-free stuff?
Yes, he did.
With a state plate.
Yes, he did.
So, I mean, look, this is what disturbs me. These people are supposed to be quote-unquote lawmakers. They're part of our government, and this is the message they send. As Martin Luther King once said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, if you feel a law is unjust and you want to disobey that law to prove a point, do so. But when you do, be prepared to suffer the consequences. In other words, go to jail. You don't just ignore the law and not expect punishment. Martin Luther King said, you can look up the quote, I'm paraphrasing, but he fundamentally said, if you really feel that strongly about a law and you want to disobey it, be prepared to get locked up, thrown in jail to prove your point. And then maybe when you get locked up and thrown in jail, there will be public outrage and there will be a movement to change that. That's the correct way to do it. Not just ignore laws because you don't particularly agree with them or they don't affect you and there'll be no consequences if you do so, especially if you're a part of a government. It's like fiduciary responsibility. Nobody cares about that. Even though you do have you have the public trust and a fiduciary responsibility, people don't realize that you have an obligation. Our city's financial team and our mayor has a fiduciary responsibility, and it's called malfeasance when they don't abide by these things. But who cares? Nobody cares. This is what you do. You got this attitude. No big deal. Right, CJ? No big deal.
It's not a biggie.
No biggie. Small fine. Small fine. $1,000. What that? Yeah.
It's not my money. What do I care?
Well, $1,000. That's what? 22,000. 1%'s too. Yeah, that's a pretty good chunk of the average per capita income in Fall River. You think the average Fall Riverite would go? Don't worry about it. It's only a $1,000 fine. You know, out of my 22 grand before taxes.
Before taxes.
Before taxes.
Before taxes.
So I'll tell you, you know, every time you think it can't get any worse, it does.
Yep. Well, on Wednesday we had made mention to the TIF that was shoved down the city council's throat.
Shoved, yeah. Shoved.
Yeah, shoved. You know, it was. I mean, let's be real about it. You know, Kathy Ann Rivera said, "Oh, this is time sensitive." Why did you wait until the last minute if it's so time sensitive?
Well, if it's
this is the failure of the administration. I guess the mayor can't do his job. And the worst part about it was, the TIF board already knew they were going to approve the TIF because they had it put on the agenda for the city council, and they met on Monday. But it was on the city council agenda put out by the previous Friday. So was there some open meeting law violation there? Did they already have a conversation about how they were going to vote?
Yeah.
But this is a $10 million investment in Fall River. That's the way to look at it. It's not a $10 million investment in Fall River, Joe Camara. It is a $10 million investment in his company. In his company. And granted, it will create 100 new jobs in Fall River. And that I can give him credit for.
Wait a minute. It will create 100 new jobs. Maybe, probably, how many filled by people in Fall River?
That's always the question.
Remember Amazon.
Right.
Remember Amazon. So the thing is that TIFs do not, as we said, look, 100 jobs. You know, I don't look at it. Maybe it's going to be me, but you know something? 100 jobs isn't worth, to me, 10 million when you're not going to get all 100 jobs. There's no, or even 50 guaranteed, and they're going to be decent paying jobs. These companies are making hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases.
And this is a medical company.
And they're getting TIFs. They're getting TIFs for what? Just like Ocean State Job Lot. Oh, you got to give them a TIF? Why? They're already operating in Fall River. They're not going to hire that many new people. And what did they do? They bought a brand. They bought a new location.
That's all they did.
And they spent it. They had enough money to buy a giant new store, but they really need a TIF? Bull. That's why, you know, this is baloney. And as we said again, they don't even have the most fundamental understanding of economy. Economies are driven by people and consumers. This is the reason the United States is in a toilet. As we said on the last show, everybody says the economy is better. The economy is better for businesses. Look at how much the average income of the working class in America has moved in the last 10 to 15 years. Very little. 8,000 people got, well, no, I'm sorry. Somebody said it was 13,000. I think one of the things, I think it might have been 8,000 and they got up to 13. But let's say, who cares? You know, between 8 and 13,000 people were laid off, working people. Were laid off, and our economy's still doing great.
That was GM.
Yeah, but you know, and the stock market went up.
Yes,
to show you the way this country feels about working people, the stock market went up when General Motors laid off 13,000 workers. Is that going to hurt the economy? They're going to spin it. They're going to go, oh, yeah, the economy's great, because you know why? General Motors did that for what? For their stockholders. So the rich are going to get richer, and that's going to be their barometer.
And the poor are going to collect unemployment.
Of how this country is doing. They're going to say the economy is great. The economy is great. Just like the taxes. The tax change. What was the tax change? A temporary.
1.72.
A temporary. Oh, not city. I'm talking about federal.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the big tax change. A temporary, and I will emphasize the word temporary change for working people, for the average citizen. A permanent change for businesses. Yes, they care about you. Yep. You know what you are? You're the footstool that they walk up the corporate ladder with. That's all you are. That's why we have no more middle class. Because when any company can get jobs in another country and take your jobs away, or a robot, they will do it. So stay angry this weekend, and please take a moment to remember our fallen soldiers.
Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.